or so for your questions. If you miss anything due to an urgent call, email, if you're work from home and you have kids in the background and you need to step away, absolutely no worries. We are recording this webinar, and afterwards we'll send out a recording link as well as links to helpful and relevant screenshot documentation. Okay, so now let's actually talk about screenshots. Applanga works to make the app localization process easier for everyone involved. That includes developers, designers, project managers, translators, and anyone else who could possibly be involved on the process in your team. Part of what helps make the localization process easier is the context that the Applanga dashboard can provide. The Applanga string management interface within the dashboard can include screenshots of an app, so translators, reviewers, and testers alike can see the current, previous, and next screens of the app. This helps them better understand your app design, the overall user journey, and they get a feeling for just how much space is available for translated strings. With better context, screenshots on Applanga can help you get more accurate translations quickly. They can also help you cut down on review time and help reviewers quickly access updated strings and their context. Screens added to the dashboard via an integration and that also include additional metadata are called smart screenshots. Smart screenshots gives your Applanga teams even more context. We do so by leveraging the additional metadata, the smart part that automatically shows Applanga users on which screen a string is located and where on the screen the string can be found, what we typically refer to as the string position. This is especially useful for screens with a lot of text. Members of your team don't have to go digging and searching for one specific string. It can much more easily be found using the smart screenshots. Screenshots on Applanga also help you quickly find any translation or functional errors. Not only can you upload base language screenshots, you can also upload translated screenshots. This provides a great way for reviewers and testers to access translated app screens. They can quickly navigate through the app screen by screen sequentially to find translation or functional errors. And functional errors in this context just means maybe the string on a button is too long for that button. Since everything is all in one place on the Applanga dashboard, reviewers can mark those screens for additional review. They can also add comments, or they can suggest new drafts or edit existing drafts to help improve those translations. And finally, the really big piece, no more files to manage. Well, just one file to manage, really. By providing context for reviewers, it can become so cumbersome for translation and app teams. I've seen really, really long PDFs, Word docs, and PowerPoints with insane amounts of screenshots, including text that has been put all together and not separated out by string. So it's really hard for reviewers to come back and update those strings or work with developers to update those strings. Now on the Applanga dashboard, the strings and screens can exist all in one place with obvious connections made between the two. Even better, changes to your screens don't require you to generate a whole brand new PowerPoint or PDF. All the changes to your screens can be tracked within the dashboard as long as those new screens are uploaded to the dashboard. The team here at Applanga really wants to help you manage your app localization process with a one-stop shop, which we put all in the dashboard. So next on our agenda is how to add screenshots to an Applanga project. There are a few main ways to add screens that I plan to cover today. We have the option to upload screens via an API integrated project. You have the option to use automated UI tests together with an SDK integration. You have the Applanga draft mode where you can manually take screenshots while using the draft mode. And we also have uploading screens from one of the Applanga design tool plugins. I'd also like to include an honorable mention for completely manually adding screens to a project. So for a project set up with API, Applanga users have the option to upload screenshots automatically with UI tests or with any kind of automated screenshot generation. The screenshots can then be pushed to the dashboard. For this option, users can push screen metadata with the screenshot. They can manually link strings to the screens on the dashboard, or users can enable OCR as part of the API upload to match strings to the screens. The metadata users can include with a screenshot is what I mentioned earlier as part of the smart screenshot. That includes on which screen a string is located and the string's position on the screen. Luckily, developers also have the option to automate the screenshotting process with the SDK as well, or they can take and push screenshots to the dashboard via a more manual function. Similar to the API screenshot upload that we just talked about, existing test scripts can be extended to capture and upload screenshots to Applanga while the relevant metadata, that string to screenshot matching and the string positions, is gathered automatically with this method. Excuse me. SDK users can also enable the OCR for string matching. That is an optional portion, the OCR for the SDK screenshot upload. So aside from the API and SDK options, we also have the option for adding screenshots to an Applanga project by manually taking those screenshots while using the Applanga draft mode. So draft mode is only available for integrated apps using one of the SDKs. The Applanga draft mode allows you to review draft translations in your app where drafts are available for a string. Otherwise, they'll just display target. This is great for in-depth testing and to help you figure out the best translation based on your in-app context. To add screenshots to a project using draft mode, you do have to open the integrated app on a mobile device first. Then you'll need to log into the draft mode using a 4-finger long hold and the draft mode code, which can be found on the project overview page. After logging into the app with the draft mode, the app will actually restart. And then once it opens again, you can begin taking screenshots using the draft mode menu. One of the really nice things about screenshots from draft mode is that you can create and name the tags representing those screens from the draft menu. Then what you see on the dashboard is directly tied with what you just captured in app. If you want to kind of pre-plan your screenshotting process in draft mode, you also have the option to create the tags associated with screens ahead of time on the Applanga dashboard. Then when you're in draft mode, you can apply those previously created tags as you begin taking those screenshots. This is a way that we really want to try and help you keep your project screens organized. So last but not least, we have the option to add screens to projects via the design plugins. We currently have plugins for both Sketch and Figma. The development team has been extremely hard at work for a plugin for Adobe XD. So you might see an announcement for that one pretty soon. For the Applanga design tool plugins, the functionality is pretty similar across the board for Sketch, Figma, and Adobe XD. Well, Adobe XD coming soon. You have the option to upload your strings and screens to Applanga using the plugin. And then once you have translations ready for strings, you can then download those translations back to your design files. This is a great way for generating those translated screenshots. One thing I would like to note is that we highly recommend creating copies of your design files. Creating copies of your design files will prevent any accidental overwriting when downloading your translations back to your design files. Even if you do accidentally overwrite your original string content in the design file, it does still exist in the base language of your project. However, it can still be complicated bringing those back to your design files, which is why we recommend that you create copies. So with the design files out of the way, those are the easiest ways to add screens to your projects. I would like to also include an honorable mention for manually adding screens to the Applanga project. As we go through the webinar and you become more familiar with the screens menu and how screens look on Applanga, you'll notice an upload button. If you use that upload button, the process is completely manual. And what I mean by completely manual is you will need to manually upload the screen, manually tag the screen in the respective strings. We do have the option to use OCR for manually uploading screenshots. Just a note though, using OCR may not correctly find all of the relevant strings. That's just something to keep in mind, and the manual upload may be helpful for the occasional one-off scenario. So with the basics out of the way, including the benefits of using screenshots on your Applanga projects, as well as the ways you can upload screens to your projects, we can finally ditch the PowerPoint and we can move to one of our demo projects. So if you will give me just a second, whoops, we will switch to my demo project. Move this out of the way. Okay, so here I am. I am already logged in. I have a couple of demos, but we're actually going to use this weather app. So this project was integrated with an Android app. It's a weather app used to check your weather locally, and you can also update the city to check weather in other places. We used English as the base language, and we also included some translated strings and screens to give us some more relevant examples. Let me grab a sip of water. Okay, so now that we've covered the basics and how to upload your screens, let's go over how we can actually use them in the dashboard. To use them in the dashboard, the first step is to actually access your screenshots within a project, and there are multiple ways to access your screenshots. I'm going to start with French, and we'll cover the main ways to access them now. So we can access our screens by clicking the screens icon over here on the side menu. From here, that will open our screens menu. And then we can select the screen we need to review by clicking on the screen thumbnail. And here is our screen. Don't worry, I know there's a lot on this menu and we will cover that a little later in the presentation. But for now, I'm going to close out the screen and then we'll move on to our next access option. So when we open the string management interface for this project, you may have noticed screen thumbnails on the left-hand side of my project. We can click on any of these thumbnails to access a screenshot with a given screen like so. And again, we have our screen pulled up. So for now, I'll close this one and we can try our next option. So for our third option, I'll click the tag underneath an individual screen. You'll notice you'll have to first click the button that says Show Screen Tag. And now we can actually see our screen tag. So now I'll click on the tag. And once again, we have our screen pulled up. I'll close this. And we'll go to our fourth and final option. So for this one, I'm actually going to click the tag icon because the screen tag is essentially just a tag the way our tags work in Applanga regularly. So this opened up our list of tags included in the project. We do have the option to filter with screens versus without screens. We also have the option to add an additional tag here. But for now, I'll just click on one of the tags to open the screen again. And here we go. We have yet another screen. So that is how you would actually open up your screens to get part of that in context editor. So as we walked through how to access your screens with the project, you probably noticed the screen side menu. So let's talk through how the side menu works and what information you can find there. So first we'll get the menu to open up by clicking on a screen in the editor menu. Let's try a different one this time. We'll just go with this. Okay, so now that the screen side menu is open, we have a couple of options. Our first option is the details. Details in this context just provide some pretty basic screenshot information. The details included are the language of the screen. In this case, it is French. We have the version, and the version is just the version of the app the screenshot was taken from. This is only applicable if screens are uploaded from the SDK, and you can also include it as optional metadata when you're uploading screens from the API. Next, we have the device the screenshot was taken on, like an iPhone, or in this case, our screenshot was taken from an Android emulator or Android app emulator. So that's why you see that device name. Then we have the OS or the operating system the screenshot was taken on. This could be Mac or iOS or Android. Then we have the resolution of the screenshot. And last but not least, we have the date and the time the screenshot was created. So after details, we have variants. This will just show us the different options for the different variants, like iOS versus Android strings. You can think of this being similar to the details we just saw earlier. You can also use these drop-down options to navigate between screenshots of the same screens. Maybe the screen design or wording has been updated since you originally uploaded screenshots. This just allows you to quickly find and review any changes in the case that they are relevant to the translations. In this case, I just have the one, but you now know where the drop-down menu is for this. So next, we have the upload button. This is something that I had mentioned earlier when we were discussing ways to add screenshots to your projects. This will allow us to manually add screens to our project. So I'll click the upload button and this will open my file explorer here. I'm going to grab an image for upload. And now that I have my image, I'll need to add some basic screen information. We've got our file name. We can also include the language it was uploaded in. There are some things that are automatically generated, like the version, device, and the operating system. In this case, you can overwrite these options. Say, we could say 2.0, or we can just leave them as is. I can also enable OCR for the screenshot. In this case, it would automatically link the strings to the screen. However, this can take a minute, so I am going to skip this step and just click cancel. But if you wanted to, you would just click upload. So next we have the ability to see our screens in full size. So with this one, we have a couple of things that are relevant on the page. So first we have the actual tag or screen name. Obviously, we have our actual screenshot. We have the ability to navigate to the next or previous screens. Oh, whoops. Let's go previous. Here we go. And if we come down to the bottom, we can zoom out or zoom in. And then we also have the screenshot information again. This is just another way for reviewers or testers to review the screenshots. And this way you're not looking so closely, it's a little bit bigger and easier to see. So I will close out of this one and let's cover the little toggle down here. So this is the all strings versus the per screen toggle. This basically helps users switch between the ability to see all strings in the project or the strings per a selected screen. So here we have per screen mode on, and we see there are 26 here. If we see all strings in the project, we see we have 71 strings in the project overall. So let's use this option to move on to our next portion of the presentation. So now that you know how to access your screenshots and the side menu options, let's go over how to actually work with your screens. Like I just mentioned, there are the two different ways to manage your review of the uploaded screens. We have the all strings mode and the per screen mode. You can easily switch between the two modes while the screen side menu is open. So we'll start with the all strings mode, as this is the default if the screens are accessed via any of the thumbnails. So the all strings mode in this case makes it easy to access any screens associated with a particular string at any point. It's perfect for accessing screenshots for a chosen subset of strings, like after applying a filter or search. So in this case, I'm going to come over to filter and I'm going to filter for needs review. So we have 6 strings in needs review. And even if I navigate between the different screens, I don't lose my filter options. We can still see all the page or screens or pages where these needs review strings are located. Let me clear my filter. So on the other hand, for per screen mode, you will only see the list of strings associated with that given screen. So that being said, let me show you the per screen mode. So let me toggle our switch. I'm not sure if you noticed, but we went from 71 strings in the whole project to just 9 strings on this page in the per screen mode. You also, I'm sorry, stumbled over my words for a second. So like I said earlier, the per screen mode will only display strings associated with that particular screen. For the per screen mode only, if you come down here, you also have the option to navigate to the previous or next screens, like so. Again, this allows for the review of screens in the same sequence that they appear in your app. This lets reviewers mimic the way your app users would navigate through the app, which is a really helpful way to provide that additional context. Per screen mode is the default mode when you access screenshots via the screens list, which we get to using the screens icon on the side, or by clicking on one of the tags in the editor, like this. Excuse me. So aside from the per screen or all strings mode, we also have the ability to quickly switch between different screen languages. This is only accomplished when you're already working within a specific language. If you start out in English, the bottom option is English. So here, what I'll do is I'll use the toggle to switch from my French screen to my English screen and back to French again. You also have the option to use this little drop down on the side, and this will give you all of the languages in the project. So we could switch to German, we could switch to English, and we can switch back to French again. So with all that being said, that covers the basics on how you can actually use the screenshots to help provide context for translations and reviewers. Alrighty. So now that you know how to upload screenshots, how to access those screenshots that you uploaded to your projects, and how to use the screen modes for your reviews, let's cover a couple more screenshot options in the screens menu. Let me close out of this. This is something we've covered a little bit already, but the newest screenshot option in the editor is this handy dandy show screen tags button. This is helpful when you need to work with tags in the editor, but don't necessarily need to reference the screenshots. It's also helpful for strings located on several pages. Think a button with something as simple as the word OK or the string OK. This could be on a dozen different screens, which means a dozen extra tags. In this case, we can just click the button, which will expand out all the screen tags. And then when we're done with them, we can also click the button again to hide those screen tags. It's a pretty simple solution to avoid confusion when you're working on a project that uses a lot of tags. So as we've been working through this project, you may have noticed that some screen thumbnails are stacked. Let me find an example like this one. These stacked thumbnails are used to show you when a string is located on multiple screens, kind of like what we just talked about before. A string including only the word OK is going to be on a lot of your app screens. These stacked thumbnails let you know the string is used in multiple places. And so here we'll just click the icon and we have opened our screen. That's just the first screen. If we look down to the bottom, we can navigate through all the screens that string is located on. We also have this little tabs option right here. If I click here, we get a nice option to see all of our screens. And then whenever I'm done seeing these or finding the screen that I need, I can click on it and we're back and focused on one screen with the option again to navigate to the others or go back to the tabs to see other screens. So those are some of the basic options that you see in the in context editor. So let's go through some of the options on the screens list. So I'm going to close this. To get to the screens list, we just use the screens icon located on the side menu. And let's cover a couple of our options. So if you have a project with a lot of tags and a lot of screens, it can be hard to find a specific screen you may need. To help you find certain screens faster, the team included both a filter and search up here, and this will apply for screens only. This is essentially a filter and a search for tags. No, sorry guys, I got lost on my checklist to cover today. Okay, so with the search, we'll need to type in the name of the screen, and we have it right there. This is really helpful if you have a lot of screens as part of your project. I've seen some with, close to 100 screens, and it's hard to find what you need. So here we have the ability to search. With the filter, this essentially applies to the category assigned to your tag. So the category in this case would be things like what operating system it came from or is associated with, like iOS, Android, or web, or if it's associated with a ticket you have in Jira or something you need to review from Jira. So in this case, I am just going to grab, I think web I have one, and then we just see our home page here. Go back to all. So that is the filter and search options. So another helpful feature for projects with a lot of screens is the ability to reorganize the order screens appear when using the per screen mode. In case you guys don't remember, the per screen mode is when you are viewing the strings per screen, but you do have the ability to press the next and previous buttons to navigate through the screens sequentially. This is helpful for providing context to both translators and reviewers alike. In the event that your screens are out of order, you can reorganize them. I do want to note that screens are uploaded to the project and display in the order in which they were created. So if you need to reorganize, you'll just need to hover and click on the double-sided arrow and drag and drop into the correct order. Actually, homepage probably makes more sense up here, but maybe we'll put our daily weather up here. And then when your reviewers are navigating through the screens, this is the order that they will see those screens in. So next on the screens list, we also have the option to rename screens on the dashboard. This can help if you have a misidentified screen, you need to update the naming conventions, or you just need something more recognizable and easy to find. Whatever the case, we'll just click on the little handy dandy pencil icon and we'll update the name. We'll say about app or something like that. I know you guys saw the filter, which applied the categories. This is also an area where we could apply one of those categories. Once we're happy with our updates, we'll just click the little save icon, or if you want to get rid of your changes, just click cancel. In this case, I'll click save. I do want to note here that the ability to rename the screen is dependent on your user role. So only owners or admins can update the screen names. If you have a reviewer in here, they will not be able to do so. So our last big screen option is the ability to delete screens from a project. Maybe you no longer need the screen for your app, or you accidentally added the same screen twice. Whatever the reason, you can just click on the small red trash can icon and then confirm if you want to delete it. Like updating the name of the screen, this option is also dependent on your user role. I'm going to cancel because I like this demo app and I don't want to mess it up. One last thing I forgot to mention is you also have the ability to manually add a screen to your project by clicking this Add Screen button. From here, you can click Browse Files or drag and drop, and it functions similarly to how we had our upload option earlier. Well, you'll have to add in some basic information manually or just accept the pre-populated information. So just like that, I've covered the big items on our agenda for today. We talked about the benefits of using screenshots on Applanga, how those screenshots can be used during the review, and the options to update or change your screenshots. I know we covered quite a bit of content in this webinar, so I'm going to bring us back to our PowerPoint. We'll full screen. And I'll go ahead and open the floor for questions. I think I saw a couple come in through the chat. So Christian, if you could take it away.
Of course. So already Tatiana asked, I kind of replied in the chat already, like when you manually upload a PNG screenshot, how does Applanga find and match the string on that? And that's actually a point for the OCR method. So OCR is an image recognition algorithm that will scan the screenshot that you manually upload and then try to match what it can find optically on that screen. It depends a lot on the screen layout, so what kind of font colors are used, which colors are used in the background of on any of the screens that you build, and also probably like the text size. All of these are factors that go into the image recognition capabilities, and then it will on reverse then see on the dashboard what strings we have that match that what the image recognition could find on that screen. So say it finds something like okay or hello on it, and then that same string exists 10 times on the dashboard, it will match all of those because the manual matching, like the manual upload and the OCR matching, does upload a string ID, so it will match all of them, and you will actually kind of see that on the tag a little bit as well. Then we have, will the recording be shared with all the sessions? Yes, so we record this and it will take a moment to render the whole thing together, and then just making sure that the share settings are all good and stuff, and then we will send it out to anybody in the follow-up to this along with some documentation. I think one thing would, I'm not sure if we shared that, but maybe also interesting, Aisha, maybe to go over how the screens list reacts to any kind of filtering and searches that are applied. So how you can kind of limit the scope of a screen by screen workflow. So what we often see is that initially the whole app is maybe screenshotted on the dashboard, and then we open the screen list and start at the top because that is the first screen that was uploaded, and can just go from start to finish through the whole list to review the whole app. But then maybe in subsequent rounds, like you add more features or you found a couple of bugs in a round, and then I don't know, uses for example like the status feature to set these specific strings to rejected, and then in the next round you maybe don't want to go through all the strings start to finish again, but instead you only want to have all those screens where, for example, something is rejected, or search for all the screens that are that have a certain word, and you can actually do that since the screens list reacts to any kind of filtering and to any kind of search terms that you put in. That's definitely also something that we had came up a couple of times, and you can totally do that. So any kind of filtering and search applied to the strings list will also be reflected in the screens list. Okay. Any other questions you guys might have? Yeah, so place the translation order. So obviously all the screenshots that you upload to a project in Applanga will then also be included in an order you send through the order interface for the actual translation production, so that the translators have that same context too, even though they work in a separate tool, but still we forward all that context. And in that content that we send to translation, there's a reference for every string that points to a screenshot on Applanga, to a specific place where that screenshot is stored. So the moment that you create the order and there maybe is not a screenshot yet, points to that same place and it just answers with like, hey, there is no screenshot yet, but you don't have to have the screenshot at the point in time that you create the order. So if you send that off and then you upload that screenshot later, it will be able to access it without you having to update the order. So you can basically say, okay, the content is now ready for order, I send it off, but the screenshots come in a week later. And then we could just kind of add the screenshots later to your product Applanga, and the linguist will still see it without you having to do any of the updates or anything. You just let your production contact, the person that kind of manages your translation process for you on the First Perfect site, know that the screenshots are ready now, and that's all of it. So if you, there's another question. So if you have already a massive number of strings in Applanga, what is the best way to get started with using screenshots? So the best way actually would be to start in big groups of strings that you can group together, maybe for components of your application. Say you have something like your settings, your payment, your onboarding. You have certain sections of the app where you can kind of maybe even by your string ID naming convention can find them. Like you can easily search them. You can start something like settings or payment or onboarding, and you have that in your strings ID, in our string IDs kind of. Then you could go in there and add a tag for all of that, and add a couple of screenshots, like just basically based on that tag. So you could start with that bigger sets, for example, settings, and then you upload your main settings page to that. And then maybe not all the strings that you put together are on that screen, but you give an idea of, hey, this all belongs to our settings, to our onboarding, to our payment. And then you start to, within that tag, within that bigger section of your app that you've created with the tag, then you can start to get finer and finer by kind of branching out from that one take. Okay, from this payment, and I'll also go payment page one and only take the first 5, 6 of those and add further screenshots to it. And the thing is, if you create this kind of tagging on the dashboard for just different components of your app, for example, then these tags are also automatically available as a target for a screenshot upload later. So you could potentially start with a organization of adding text for different components on the dashboard, and then maybe also start with the draft mode to navigate through the app, open the draft mode, and say, okay, this is actually a good example of screenshots for payment, and then you upload that via the draft mode. Or if you have any kind of screenshot automation going, then you can say, hey, I have actually somebody taking screenshots, and I already have these kind of tags on the dashboard, and I can use them as upload. So the starting point would be on the dashboard, start as rough as possible and kind of componentizing your project, and then go any finer as the time goes on. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, with no more questions at this time, I'd like to thank everyone for their time today on Applanga's first webinar. Like I said earlier, this is something we hope to regularly produce for our users and customers. So be on the lookout for another invite in the next few weeks. If you come up with any questions later in the day, you can always contact us via our website support chat. And we also have pretty extensive documentation at applanga.com with /docs. There is also one section dedicated to screenshots only. Later today, you'll receive a follow-up email from me with the link to the webinar recording. Like Christian mentioned, we just need to give it time to process via WebEx. And then we'll also send links to some of that helpful documentation. So with that, thank you again so much for your time, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.